7 o'clock in Dusseldorf, and Marlene Griesser and her husband are in a rush. Their children Pauline and Samuel, aged 4 and 2, are expected at the daycare centre. Samuel was 9 months old when Marlene decided to go back to work, which is very early in Germany. Many women, especially in West Germany, take a longer time out after giving birth.
I was divided. I wanted to finish my teacher training, and then a lot of time passed by. It was just too long. I wanted to do something for myself, because I had a long break between the 2 kids where I didn't work, and it encouraged me to do something else.
Germany has the world's highest proportion of women who have chosen not to have children. Despite its successful economy, the country's birth rate is currently below the European average and continued to decline between 2001 and 2011. Apparently, many women believe they have to choose between a family and a career.
People sometimes said to me, "How come you've got such a small child and yet you're doing your teacher training at the same time? How do you cope?" They were surprised, but not dismissive. Sometimes my girlfriends, who go back to work very early, tell me that it has a strange reputation in Germany, because usually women stop for at least a year or longer. Sometimes there's a bit of disapproval in the community.
To help increase the birth rate, Angela Merkel's government decided to fork out subsidies close to 200 billion euros a year to help and promote families. But seemingly this has had little success. A huge project to construct daycare centres in Germany could be one way to change the trend. It's a system that is well developed in France and in Scandinavian countries, which also boast higher birth rates. But the prospect triggered a rush on some centres like Picasa in Dusseldorf, which offers around 50 places.
We had 600 parents on the waiting list when we opened more than a year ago. We received enrolments more than 9 months before we even opened. At the time, the building didn't exist, and we didn't know when it would open.
During recent months, more and more daycare centres were built or extended in Germany, and lots of people were re-educated as day nannies or childcare workers. By August 1st, everyone was promised a place in daycare if needed. The Ministry for Family called it a success story, but according to the German Association of Towns and Municipalities, there were still 100,000 places missing. That's what happened to Sabine Radka and Udo Driefs.
We both spent the first 2 months at home with our child. And after that, I went back to work. My employer supports me and gives me a lot of opportunities to be a father.
After a year, the city still hadn't allocated Sabine and Udo a place at a daycare centre, so they had to choose a private one, which was more than twice the cost of a public facility at €1,000 a month.
I'm disillusioned, not angry. I know we're lucky because we have flexible employers and we found a private daycare centre which we like. But I'm disillusioned because the government promises more than it can fulfil, and we are paying more than we ever imagined. It doesn't match all the positive news about how good the situation is now.
After the couple met with a lawyer, the municipality proposed a public centre, almost 5 kilometres away from their apartment. But Sabine and Udo commute to work by public transport and don't have a car. Other parents in their situation have opted for a day nanny, which is far more expensive. It seems the government's recent promises have turned out to be very costly for some families.
The problem is that logistically, it isn't possible for the city to judge every case, such as whether the parents work or not, or where they work.
In Cologne, where half of children aged between 1 and 2 got a place in daycare, some 80 parents pressed charges against the city. However, in East Germany, the measures have been a little easier to achieve because of its communist past, where daycare centres were already quite normal. The head of the family department in Cologne believes it's important to create more all-day schools in Germany.
We've
arrived at a turning point. I can remember discussions I had 8 years ago when people in Germany talked about the possible damage on children who were in school all day. If this works in other European countries, why should it damage German children?
Full-day schools and daycare centres are measures which work well in other European countries. In France and Scandinavia, mothers have more children and go back to work earlier. So why do so many qualified women in Germany have no children at all? Or why do they tend to start a family later in life? These students think it's because of the length of studies in the country.
I know students in other countries who also study law, but they finish earlier. This means they can start work earlier, and then you can start thinking of having a family.
I think it's extremely difficult to stop once you've started working, because by then you like your job and you think, now I want to take the next step at work, and only after that I'll think of having a family. I think at some point you just have to take the leap and stop working, but you'll always think that you probably won't get the same opportunities after giving birth. In Germany, more women than men have higher education qualifications, such as a master craftsman diploma or a university degree. But most of the executive posts are still in the hands of men. Law professor Gregor Thusing believes this pattern is established in the early years of the professional life.
At a time when it's important in a company to make a career and to be physically present, many female graduates choose the opt-out solution. They prefer staying at home with the children.
Equal opportunities and work-life balance are issues that the company Deutsche Post takes very seriously, in contrast to other businesses in Germany. The courier company has a women's quota and its own kindergartens. And the equal opportunities don't stop there, with more and more fathers at the company choosing flexible working hours.
It's very interesting, because if you take into account the new statistics, the work-life balance is very important to the younger generation. Some time ago, they just wanted to make a career and get a high salary. But if you ask them now what is most important, they choose the work-life balance of a company.